Among all the mangaka out there, a few have truly made a name for themselves, becoming known as some of the most talented, innovative, and creative minds in the industry. Most of the time, we associate these artists with their biggest, most popular works. But in this video, we're diving a little deeper. We're taking a look at some of the most important figures in the world of manga and the hidden gems they've created that hardly anyone talks about. Time travel is a fascinating concept, right? Well, not so much when you're suddenly thrown back into the era of Genghis Khan, the guy who leveled entire cities with his armies. And that's exactly what happens to Iba and his fiancée Kyoko. The two of them are archaeologists, or maybe historians. On top of that, Iba is an upcoming talent in Japanese swordsmanship, winning duel after duel. Sounds like the perfect life, doesn't it? But things quickly take a dark turn. One after the other, they're teleported into the past, where Iba ends up fighting in an army. The commander of that army, General Yang, has his eye on Kyoko, so he sends Iba to the front lines, hoping he'll be killed in battle. But against all odds, Iba survives and returns to reunite with Kyoko. After the battle, Iba confronts the visibly stunned General Yang. A fight breaks out for Kyoko's fate, and Iba literally slices Yang in half. As a result, he's brought before Genghis Khan himself, who is so impressed, he promotes Iba to general of the Mongol army. Time passes, Iba and Kyoko have a child, but Genghis Khan, paranoid about his own succession, is far from pleased. Secretly, he orders another general to kill Iba and bring him the child. Benica lures Iba to a remote mountain and tries to assassinate him. Meanwhile, the child is taken into custody by one of Genghis Khan's servants. With no other choice, Iba draws his sword once again. He defeats Benica, but chooses to spare him, calling him his only friend. Eventually, our main character stands face to face with Genghis Khan. But there's a twist. Kyoko, being a historian, knows that Genghis Khan isn't supposed to die for several more years, which means if he kills him, history itself could be altered forever. Now he faces a crucial decision. Does he kill Genghis Khan and rewrite history, or defeat him without dealing the final blow? If you want to know what happens next, you'll have to read it for yourself. The manga is called King of Wolves. It's a one-shot written by none other than Kentaro Miura himself. First published in December 1989, it's not only gripping and entertaining. Fans of Berserk will notice quite a few subtle references throughout. You'll see hints that this might have been a sort of spiritual predecessor to Berserk. Iba, for example, has a strong resemblance to Guts. Kyoko, she looks a lot like Casca. And the charm Kyoko wears bears a striking similarity to Griffith's Behelit necklace. In just about every manga discussion, there's always that one person who swears by the works of Tsutomu Nihei, claiming they're unlike anything else out there. And honestly, they're not wrong. Most people bring up Blame, Knights of Sidonia, or Biomega, his best-known titles. But there's one manga that almost never gets mentioned. It's short, experimental, and completely under the radar. The story takes place in a world where humanity has long since stopped being human. It opens with bleak, haunting imagery of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Crumbling city blocks, collapsed megastructures, rusted debris, abandoned vehicles. A lone man appears, armed, trained, and completely hollow inside. His face shows nothing but exhaustion. Whether he's part of some fading military group, or just a lone survivor clinging to habit, we don't know. He moves like a ghost through the ruins, alert, methodical, but aimless. Then he meets her, a young woman with long hair standing alone in the wasteland. She's not wounded, not sick, but also not alive in the way we understand it. She doesn't speak, doesn't react. No fear, no joy, no panic. She's like a doll, and still the man takes her with him. Maybe out of pity, maybe because she reminds him of someone he lost. They wander through the dead city. The environment becomes more surreal, massive industrial structures, twisted architecture, brutalist concrete landscapes with no function. But the real danger hides in the shadows. Mutated creatures, once human, now grotesque husks driven by blind hunger. The man fights with ruthless efficiency. The woman, completely unfazed. No flinching, no screaming, nothing. With each turn of the page, one question grows louder. What is she? Is she human or something else entirely? In a distorted flashback, we get fragments. Maybe she was a test subject. Maybe she carries a virus. Maybe she's the very reason this world ended. Eventually, they reach a building. He opens the door. She steps inside. She turns to look at him, and he hesitates, just for a moment. Then, darkness. The name of this obscure, early work, Dead Heads, written by Tsutomu Nihei at the very beginning of his career. In a world where dangerous missions aren't left to heroes but to specialists, there's one type of agent that stands above the rest, the risk hunters. They operate in the shadows. They only take on the most extreme cases, and among them, one name stands out, Chameleon Jail. Yeah, his name already sounds like a code word, and in a way, it is, because Jail has an ability that sets him apart from everyone else. He can manipulate his Kara to completely change his appearance. Body shape, face, even gender. He can transform into anyone. To his enemies, he's a ghost. To his clients, he's the last resort. And to us readers, one of the most unusual protagonists out there. The manga doesn't waste time with backstory or setup. We're thrown right into the action. Watching Jail disguise himself as an African man to infiltrate and expose a criminal. No long explanations, just a jaw-dropping showcase of his powers. And from that moment on, we're locked into his first real mission. The case? A revenge plot. An ex-actor named Goldman is planning to murder an Italian mobster. Why? Years ago, that mobster was involved in a shootout that killed Goldman's girlfriend, who also happened to be the sister of one of Jail's colleagues. Now Goldman is ready to pull the trigger, but Jail's colleague begs him to step in, because he knows his sister wouldn't have wanted her former lover to become a killer. What follows isn't your typical action scene. It's a psychological showdown. Jail travels to the scene of the planned hit and transforms into the dead woman. When Goldman sees her, he freezes. For just a second, he believes his lover has come back from the dead. Every mission in Chameleon Jail is like a brand new stage play. There's no long-running plot, no overarching villain. Each case is its own self-contained story, with a different tone, setting, and mood. Sometimes serious, sometimes absurd, sometimes brutal. In Jail, he's always in the center, shape-shifting, elusive, but strangely human. The pacing is fast, the storytelling sharp, and the style, a mix of late 80s cyber-cool and postmodern hero deconstruction. This manga isn't trying to be deep, and honestly, it doesn't need to be. It's stylish, entertaining, and bursting with creativity in ways you wouldn't expect. You can feel the signature touch of Takehiko Inoue shining through, subtly but unmistakably. Chameleon Jail was released back in 1989, collected in just 2 volumes. Today, it's considered a bit of a hidden gem, a rare find for fans of weird, stylish, one-of-a-kind manga. The next manga on our list is a lot more grounded, but no less gripping, because this time, it's not about superpowers or wild sci-fi tech. It's about something much more real, hard-earned experience. At the center of the story is a man named Jed Goshi. He's a former US Marine, half Japanese, half American, and he's seen just about every kind of combat deployment imaginable. But instead of becoming a mercenary after his military career, Goshi takes a completely different path. He trains civilians, ordinary people who suddenly find themselves in extraordinary danger, and that's exactly where the first story kicks off. Goshi is hired to help 4 sisters, whose father, a police officer, was recently murdered. Now they have good reason to believe they might be next. But instead of charging in guns blazing, Goshi starts where it matters most, with methodical, disciplined training, firearms, self-defense, tactical awareness, skills you'd expect from elite military units, not your average household. And of course, the danger doesn't stay theoretical for long. When the attack finally comes, Goshi doesn't lose his cool. He executes a flawless, calculated response. No flashy action, no dramatic posing. Just calm, precise, professional defense. He protects the sisters, finishes the job, and walks away without a word. Each chapter in this manga is a self-contained story. New characters, new settings, new problems, but always with Goshi at the center, doing what he does best, preparing the unprepared. The manga is called Pineapple Army, and it was created by none other than Naoki Urasawa, the mastermind behind Monster, 20th Century Boys, and Pluto. But before all of that, before the world knew his name, he drew this, a nearly forgotten early work, but already full of the narrative depth and subtle tension that would define his career. A true hidden gem for anyone curious about where one of the greatest manga creators of our time got his start. This next manga feels like someone tossed Star Wars, Ghost in the Shell, and classic samurai films into a blender, then hit the overdrive button. In this world, samurai are cybernetic warriors with artificial bodies, mystical energy sources, and special keys that unlock powers and reveal ancient secrets. Our protagonist is Hachimaru, a boy who, at first glance, couldn't be further from a warrior. He's fragile, sickly, and has been hooked up to life support machines since birth. His world is confined to a small home where he lives under the constant protection of his overbearing father, who does everything possible to keep him safe. No risks, no movement, no freedom. Hachimaru's only escape? Video games, where he dreams of one day becoming a samurai. Then one day, everything changes. A wise, talking cat-like creature named Dharma shows up, a veteran samurai in search of a worthy student, and by pure chance, he crosses paths with this sickly boy. When a sudden mechanical failure puts Hachimaru's life in danger, Dharma sees an opportunity. He senses something greater in the boy, a spark of potential. So he offers Hachimaru a choice: undergo a dangerous ritual, one that will erase his old self entirely and be reborn as a true samurai. Hachimaru doesn't hesitate. In one dramatic moment, his soul leaves his broken body and fuses with a samurai core. And then, boom, rebirth. For the first time ever, he can breathe on his own. But freedom comes with a price. He's no longer a spectator. He's now part of a much bigger, more dangerous, and far more mysterious world than he ever imagined. Visually, this manga is insanely creative. You can tell the artist had a blast designing all of it. Floating fortresses, key swords, animal companions. It's a colorful mashup of science fiction, Eastern mythology, and childlike wonder. The story plays out in a kind of episodic format, but there's a clear arc. Hachimaru's journey to find his place in the world. As a samurai, as a person, and as someone with a destiny. The story was written by none other than Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto. The manga is called Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru. Unfortunately, it was cut short and didn't get the full run it deserved. But if you're a Naruto fan or just curious about Kishimoto's post-Naruto vision, it's definitely worth checking out. What do you think about these manga? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.